So this is part two of a little video series on basically it's a primer for how religion tends to be emotionally persuasive. It's a list of the things that I would tell myself as if I were to go back in time and give myself a list as a teenager to help me not be misled because I was. So number 10. Having an authoritative and charismatic leader suggesting what the experiences of the group are supposed to be like and what they mean. Authority and charisma do a lot of emotional work that careful, rational argument struggles to keep up with. Um, Number 11, not being familiar with critical thinking, skepticism, science, psychology, and the arbitrary cultural success of the world's most ancient, most widely subscribed religions. Not being familiar with psychosomatic healing, the cross-cultural psychology of born-again experiences. It's not just evangelicals. Sleep paralysis, hallucination, that normal people hallucinate. That hallucination can entail all of the senses, not just visual. And other gimmicks that popular religion has traditionally exploited for the sake of false credibility. Even if there is a true religion, you should know all the gimmicks so you don't buy into all the false ones. But definitely like psychosomatic healing, there's a couple different things that can be affected by just like suggestion, basically. I remember this one instance where this guy was just certain, like he's like, oh, they had an altar call, and this woman came up and she had like neck pain or something, and the pastor, priest, or whomever prayed over her, laid hands on her, and her neck pain went away. Pain is a very subjective kind of feeling. Like it's subjective enough that your pain can go away by the power of suggestion, at least for a while. And so he just swore up and down like, oh, this was a miracle or whatever. And it's like, how could you know that? And he said, oh, she was a registered nurse or something, so she would know. It's like, okay, you know what, registered nurses, you know how many of them are just like against vaccination and stuff. Like, these are not necessarily the most discerning people in the world. Lots of people have, science job. There's lots of religious scientists and religious, healthcare workers, and so many people they apply what they know in their job, and they are not discerning across the board in any other domain. Their level of wisdom can just drop straight off the cliff, like right after they walk out the door of their job. So it was a cookie cutter case of psychosomatic healing. And I asked him, like, did the heavenly lights come out, shine down? Was there magical sparkles? Did you get X-rays of, like, whatever her next situation was? Like, no, 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 no. She would just know. It's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Anyway, yeah, cross-cultural psychology of born-again experiences. It's not just the evangelical thing. You can have your whole emotional continuum flipped with profound religious experience. Just completely turns over your character. It's definitely something that's been studied and understood. So if you have that experience, like, well, I mean, again, this happens in other religions with other religious beliefs, and is just human psychology. It's just a possible experience to have as a human in whatever context. So sleep paralysis hallucination. There's your body has some kind of mode where it tries to keep you staying put, so you don't, like, roll around too much and hurt yourself while you're asleep. And but you can kind of wake up in the middle of that not being totally turned off, and you're very primed for hallucination in that mode. And so traditionally, you go back in history, and there's succubuses that people feel something on their sitting on their chest or whatever, and they may, depending on the culture, it's like a demon or a ghost or a goblin or whatever it is. But basically, you're just prepped for hallucination. You can't move. You're stuck. It's like, why can't I move? And, like, you're hallucinating whatever the bad guy is in that situation. If you see a demon or something, oh my gosh, demons are real. One attacked me. So that adds to the credibility of some religion. But I mean, it's just a hallucination. I've hallucinated gnomes marching around my bed, And I was like, oh shoot, gnomes, and I was paralyzed and couldn't move. It's like, oh, and I was like, I knew about sleep paralysis hallucination, and so I was just like, it's just a sleep paralysis hallucination. I'm going back to sleep. And the gnomes, I don't know what happened to them. So, true story. I'm not going to believe in gnomes as a result of that. Let's see. A lot of people don't know that, there doesn't have to be anything wrong with your brain to hallucinate. Normal people hallucinate. And hallucination can entail all the senses, like a smell. You can hallucinate a smell. You can hallucinate touch. You can hallucinate, your brain is a virtual reality machine. When you dream, everything happens. You can feel and touch and taste, and everything is active. And so those same things apply in hallucination. If you're going to ask me, like, how do we know anything's real? Well, reality is kind of hard to apprehend. And like, how do you know something's an optical illusion? Well, you poke it and test it and check it with other things, and you do your best. And yeah, sometimes you're in a dream and you're like, oh, I totally feel like I'm awake, and I'm confirming this, and then you wake up from that. It's like, oh, I wasn't. Weird. Yeah, reality's hard. It's just hard. I'm sorry. But if we can confirm in the lab that you can hallucinate, smells, taste, touch, the whole shebang, that's just a true fact that you got to deal with. Sorry. Let's see. Yeah, so religions utilized all these kinds of things for the sake of false credibility. You should at least know about them before you have them, and before you're the kind of person, no, it totally happened, this is my experience and this proves it. Like, if you know that ahead of time, that this happens in like different cultures and different religions, and isn't even necessarily connected to a religion, like the gnomes, yeah, you're probably, you might not have it as a result of knowing that, but then, if you know that and have it, then you'll be a little more skeptical and a little more reasonable about it. You say, well, I still need good justifications for my religion. I can't completely, rely on some born again experience, or, some demon visiting you in the night and sitting on your chest or something. Let's see. Obviously, this, we're going through the list. Having a mental illness that enables any experience generated to be even wilder and more profound. Mental institutions are full of religion and all sorts of crazy religious stuff. Definitely a modifier in that category, that if you have untreated mental illness, you might want to know that whatever your brain generates isn't necessarily reality. Let's see. It's like, would you be if you added up everything that I've gone over in these videos, and if you put all of that on one person, and say that person was under the influence of all these things, but they're in India, and they become a die-hard religious fanatic of Vishnu, like, would you be at all surprised in that, they've had all these profound experiences, the prayer and fasting and confirming experiences, and they've been saturated with their culture, and they've had charismatic leaders tell them stuff, the whole thing. Would you be at all shocked to learn that someone in some other religion is just as die-hard as you because of all of those things, but they're just wrong? They're just wrong. That's the hard truth of life. You can have all of that going for you and still just be completely wrong. Somebody might ask, if we're not allowed to believe in religion for these reasons, then how could we believe in any religion? It's like, well, you're allowed to believe in anything you want, but these things clearly are playing most people for the fool. Do you want to be the fool? In the case of a biblical Christianity, having appropriate levels of evidence entails a good deity merely doing what we expect any person to do when basic credibility and high expectations are the issue. Show up, introduce yourself, build trust over time. Don't do anything sketchy like asking us to murder our kids or gay people, or threatening to set everyone on fire forever for being imperfect, etc. Answer important questions, troubleshoot problems, etc. Asking billions of people to be credulous or metaphysical sleuths or accept evidence that's good enough for any false religion is obviously not reasonable. Notice all this is just normal stuff, and none of it requires any psychological ploys or dubious gimmicks that I've listed out here. So let's see if I have anything else. think that generally covers it. Yeah, I think I'm good. Take care.